lightly roast them. Don't
Right.
take them beyond that.
Or even dry roasted probably would be best.
Yeah.
That's getting back to that. Do you prefer the unsalted, or lightly salted, or the high salt ones? Let's take a quick look. French fries, do they have cholesterol?
Yes. Yes.
All right. How about potato chips?
Yes. Yes, they do.
All right. This one we're going to get. Peanut butter is always controversial. Peanut butter has cholesterol?
No.
Yeah, usually I get yeses and nos. You guys are no different than any class I teach. Usually yeses and nos, and then a lot of blank looks like I don't know. All right, so
I'm going to say no, because I think it means
how about
cholesterol
nuts?
comes from animals.
How about nuts of any kind?
No.
No. I'm thinking nuts.
How many say yes?
I'm thinking cholesterol is made by animals.
All right. How about apple pie?
Yes.
Yes.
Who says apple pie has cholesterol?
No. Depends on what you put in that pie crust.
That's
Some oil in
You
it.
got to put butter, oil. But if you put vegetable oil, it doesn't have
Okay.
cholesterol.
Okay. You guys did okay. I'm not even going to go to the avocado have cholesterol.
Yes.
All right,
No.
you guys failed as a class. Okay.
We
You
did.
failed. Some of you got some of the individual items
I'm like,
right.
only comes from animal fat.
Yeah. Yeah. Say it again.
Cholesterol only comes from animals.
fat.
Cholesterol only comes from things that have livers.
Yep.
Okay, you make cholesterol in your liver, so does every other animal.
Right.
All right. So when your liver makes it, so the answer to the quiz, there you go. None of them have
No.
cholesterol. Okay, they're all cholesterol free.
Fried in some
Wait a
animal.
minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah, let's wait a minute. Go ahead.
Well, I get it.
Okay,
French
you get
fries,
it.
vegetable shortening. Potato chips, vegetable shortening. No
Yeah,
cholesterol.
yeah. Matter of fact, Benny, how much cholesterol is in these Lay's potato chips?
None.
So you know I'm not making it up.
Zero.
Zero.
Let me
Right?
ask you another
Unless
question.
you
then.
fry,
Some
like I said,
people
when you
fry,
cook that
I mean,
stuff, that's
not
animal
invented.
fat.
You everyday people, that don't look for they don't use vegetable oil, they use fat, pork fat to fry French fries and potato chips in. And they got cholesterol, right?
Okay, so let me just talk about the potato first. Okay, this does not have a liver.
Okay.
Does not have cholesterol.
It doesn't
What is it
produce-
cooked in usually?
Vegetable
Vegetable,
oil.
okay. So if we take the oil out of the corn or the olive or whatever, there's no cholesterol in that oil.
No.
But let me pause here. Remember the two culprits in the American diet, fat
And sugar.
and sugar. So let me use my teaspoon again. A teaspoon of olive oil, 45 calories. Level teaspoon, 45 calories. A teaspoon of peanut oil, 45 calories. Canola oil, 45 calories.
Oh, no.
A teaspoon of bacon fat, 45 calories. A teaspoon of beef fat, 45 calories. A teaspoon of lard, 45 calories, approximately. There's minor differences. They're all high in calories. So whether you're using vegetable oil or lard or animal fat, which a lot of people aren't using anymore in the processing of foods, they're all high in calories. So calories are different than cholesterol. So if I take this potato and I fry it in lard, which is pig fat, now it has cholesterol.
Right.
All right. So by definition, depends what it's fried in, but you look in the restaurants and the labels today, everything is no cholesterol because it comes from a plant origin. Okay. So cholesterol only comes from animal products. So two food groups primarily. What two food groups have cholesterol?
Animals,
Humans.
Yeah, protein foods, the meat, the chicken, the fish, and then
Dairy.
the dairy. So if you look at a piece of, I got a piece of chicken and a piece of fish. So if I bite into this piece of chicken, I'm biting into cells, body cells, right? They're cooked, but I'm biting into body cells which have outside membranes which have cholesterol. Same thing with the fish. So in my classes, I always tell my patients, if it has a face, it produces cholesterol. All right? Maybe it has a face.
I like that.
All right. So when we drink the milk, when we eat the egg, if it came from something that had a face, it has cholesterol. Okay. But in terms of monitoring, remember I already told you this food group right here, people eat too much from, right? I told you 3 to 6 ounces, 7 ounces, probably all people need to be eating. This is 3 ounces. This is 4. Okay. So that's 7. That's too much. Even for most people that are eating, animal products, that's too much. Okay, so we need to scale back. Because if you're eating more than that, chances are you may be eating too much cholesterol. So I'm not going to get deep into cholesterol, but people shouldn't eat more than 200 to 300 milligrams maximum, right? Okay, the only ones that don't eat cholesterol by definition are vegetarians, right? Vegans. Now, you take a glass of skim milk, there might be, 4 milligrams of cholesterol. 200 to 300 is kind of the upper end of what's recommended. If you eat an egg yolk has 186 milligrams of cholesterol. Okay, 200 to 300 is what's recommended. Okay, no more than that. The lower the better, probably, on cholesterol. So I'm not suggesting, I'm just educating where it comes from, because most people don't know. You already demonstrated, most of you demonstrated, you don't really know where cholesterol comes from, because you said French fries have cholesterol.
Have you got a sheet
In terms of what?
after this class?
No, I don't. I don't have a sheet because I couldn't bring any from work because that's government taxpayer dollars.
It's going to be in YouTube.
Yes.
It's going to be
It's
in
going to be on
YouTube.
YouTube. Oh, I'm going to show you a slide in just a minute. All right, so really though, saturated fat is the biggest culprit at raising cholesterol. Okay, so saturated fat, if you eat too much, your liver is going to go into overdrive making more cholesterol. Does that make sense? Now we know liver makes cholesterol at night, while the body's repairing itself. So if your daily intake is high in saturated fat, the body doesn't know what to do with it, so it just goes into overdrive making more cholesterol while you sleep at night. So let's talk about saturated fat. Before I show you this slide though, we're going to look at the saturated fat content of different foods. I will tell you that the lower you can get your saturated fat intake, the better. Most recommendations I see don't eat more than anywhere from 10 to 20 grams per day. Okay, I tend to believe that if you have high cholesterol, getting it lower is better. All right. You can't completely eliminate saturated fat from your diet. You'll get a little bit even if you're eating a healthy diet. But you can definitely lower it to less than 10 grams. Okay. So if you look at the saturated fat content of foods, and I put 3 ounces for the meats because that's typically what we recommend in terms of a serving size for most people. Women could be a little bit smaller. So if you take a 3-ounce portion, you look at the saturated fat grams, and remember, we want to be no more than, say, 15 grams per day. But let's kind of analyze some of these food items. So you look at Applebee's hamburger, 17 grams of saturated fat in an Applebee's hamburger. All right, that's one food item for that whole day. All right. If you take a look at bacon, well, probably not eating bacon here, but about a gram of saturated fat per slice. Those are small slices, right?
How, an Applebee's hamburger, how do you get 17 grams of fat in a hamburger? Is it because it's so big? It's so
No, it's
greasy,
17. No.
or-
Let's make a distinction. It's not 17 grams of fat. It's 17 grams of saturated fat. It's probably 40 or 50 grams of total fat.
But I'm saying, is it how it's processed or how it's cooked
No.
or how
It's a
it's
solid
If you
fat.
take
It's
this
just
meat,
the way it is?
it's naturally in the meat. It's a high-fat meat. So higher fat meats, like beef, tends to be higher in fat, right? Why? Because those cows are just kind of sitting around the field eating grass all day, right? And they're not moving around a lot. If you go kill a deer and eat deer meat, it's going to be a lot lower in fat because it's running around and there's a lot more muscle on that. Right, so the more muscle an animal has, the less fat there's going to be. So in terms of this, I'm just putting up here the grams of saturated fat, okay? Because that's the culprit in terms of cholesterol, raising cholesterol levels. All right, so let's move on. All right, so I put a few more items up here. Oh, you can notice that the chicken and the turkey and the fish, look at the fish. Look how low it is in saturated fat. Not even 1 gram of saturated fat in a typical 3-ounce serving of fish. The cholesterol content is pretty similar to all the other meats. I mean, it's a little bit lower, but not significantly. The big difference is in the saturated fat, which will help to lower cholesterol for most people anyway. If they stop eating the high-fat items and start eating the leaner poultry and the fish, they're probably going to benefit in terms of lowering cholesterol. All right. Questions? And I put the milk up there too. So you can see, I mean, depending upon the milk, the saturated fat intake can start going up. Skim milk, if you take skim milk, Okay, here's my glass of skim milk. There's no fat because they've skimmed the fat out, right? It's been taken out. If I take, and that's why I bring my butter here, if I take a pat of butter and I put it into the skim milk and mix it up, that's 2% milk. Okay, it's got the fat back in there now. If I put another pat of fat there, that's whole milk. So when they skim the milk, the fat comes out, that's skim milk. The fat's gone. All right. And by the way, the calorie difference, I'm going to get you in just a second. The calorie difference, a glass of skim milk is 90 calories. 2% milk is 120. Whole milk is 160. So could that make a difference for some people? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So sometimes people are drinking too much milk anyway. Sometimes if they just switch to skim milk and cut back to maybe 2 or 3 glasses a day instead of a half a gallon or a quart a day, it's going to lower their calorie intake too, right? Because if I get rid of a glass of skim or 2% milk, I just cut out 120 calories. Right? Is that going to add up over 30 days, 60 days? Let me get Brother Cook, then I'll come back here. Go ahead.
You know, I noticed you got 2 types of milk. Well, you got hard, pipe, soul, and grouper. 3 ounces of 0.2 grams of fat. And you got Alaskan salmon.
Well, salmon's a little higher in fat. So it's a little fattier fish, just like trout has a little bit more fat. So there are some fish that have a little bit more fat, but they tend to be higher in the omega-3s, so they're not quite as bad for you. You know, we could debate that too.
I had 2 questions. So the difference in the gram content of the farmed salmon and then like the freshwater salmon, is the fresh with the, I mean, would that salmon have a less gram content?
I think it's going to be similar. I don't know the answer though. I think it'll probably be fairly similar.
About the same.
Yeah.
And then also my other question, when it comes to, say for instance, you don't drink regular milk, you're drinking like the silk milk and the rice milks and so forth, those would have less grams of fat?
Well, yes, and it's going to be lower in saturated fat.
Okay.
What about
So,
sodium?
sodium is going to be similar to milk. Like a glass of milk has, matter of fact, I have that information here. A glass of milk is somewhere around 100 to a little bit more milligrams of sodium. I'm going to find my milk here. Milk. Let's see. Eggnog, soy milk. 1 cup of milk, 100 to 130. You know, so soy milk is pretty similar. It's a little bit lower. I think I just looked at my soy milk at home. I think it's a little less than 100 milligrams of sodium per serving. All right. Okay. Other questions? Pat?
Eggnog.
I just had a comment. On the cheap side, I had an old fellow who was kind of a miser and a penny pincher. He said one time, he said, if you'll try this, he said, take whole milk and take a half a glass and add the rest water. He said, you got less fat, less everything, and he said it tastes about the same as 2% milk. And if you look at the chart up there, it would have half the saturated fat of the
So water it down.
Water, yeah.
So it'd be 2.3 instead of 3.1, you know. And
Right, right. But notice, as I'm showing you the saturated fat content of foods, we're really limiting ourselves to 2 food groups here. There's no fruits up there. There's no vegetables up there. There's no beans up there. There's no grains up there. It's the animal products.
yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
How deadly is eggnog, Wayne?
How deadly is eggnog?
Yes.
I
I
don't
like
know.
eggnog. How deadly is it?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't get it during
I don't
the
like
holidays.
It's
it.
got eggs and
Has a lot of
milk.
Make sure it's pasteurized. I guess, you know, make sure it's pasteurized if you're going to be eating it. You know, eating raw eggs is not a
It's
good,
got the
a good
eggs and
thing.
the
Leave me alone, guys. I want to hear this
Yeah, I
man.
mean, the sodium content is 135 per cup, so it's pretty similar to milk. Yes,
I've got 2 questions. The first one is, I noticed the fish, the ones that were lower in saturated fat, were fish that were traditionally deep water fish. The cod, the
Okay.
pike, the
All right.
grouper.
all right.
What's the bits about the deep water that caused them to be so?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So that was your observation. That's good. So you're obviously more up on the different types of fish and where they habitate in the ocean.
Because I'm a passionate fisherman.
Sure, sure. So that's a good observation. I don't know the answer to it.
Also, how I was raised, drinking milk, we didn't have all that pasteurization that we have in this country. So we got the milk fresh from the cow, and we boiled it, literally boiled it,
Mhm.
and let it cool. And as it cooled, the cream would rise to the top, and we would scrape off the cream. Some people eat it, some people,
Mhm.
and we would drink the milk. And drinking the milk after it's boiled is an entirely different taste. It's sweeter, but it's not as
Yeah.
thick as before it's boiled. What does that do to the
It's probably going to reduce the fat content of it, I would think, by boiling it and skimming that off, for sure. So yeah, it's going to be lower in fat. Just a confession to everybody here, and since I was a kid, I hated the taste of milk. I could put milk in my cereal, that was okay, but when I drank milk, I held my breath until I got another piece of food in my mouth. And I drank milk because I thought it was, good for me. I got to drink my milk, right? So I drink my milk, guzzle it, and then grab something to eat. So milk would never be the last thing to go on my mouth at a meal. I always had to have something to kind of.
we would put certain things in the milk. We would peel orange and lime and let it dry and make sure there is no rind in it. Then put that with cinnamon sticks, nutmeg, and clove, and
Right,
it gives
right.
the milk a different flavor.
I'm going to move on. Pass, I'm going to take one more question. I got to move
No,
on.
I didn't have anything.
Okay.
I got
Okay, so here's just some fast foods that I've decided to put up there in terms of grams of saturated fat. Okay, because if you take a